Hello. Today, I'm going to be reacting to the Chicago Blackhawks 2021-2022 season schedule. Reveal came out just a couple hours ago. I still haven't gotten a chance to go through the entire schedule for us. Uh, kind of looked at some of the more key matchups, and I'm actually really excited to go through this. So, yeah, get back to a normal schedule. Have a new team in the league in Seattle, and get a new team in the Central Division. So the Central Division finally joins everyone else and has 8 teams in their division with the merge of the Arizona Coyotes into the Central Division, which still just baffles my mind that the Arizona Coyotes and the Nashville Predators is now a division game. Yeah, Arizona versus Nashville is a division game now. That's the reality. That's the league we live in now. So, anyways, we're gonna go ahead and move on, jump straight into it. I was gonna do it on the Blackhawks official site, but they kept scrolling without me wanting it to. So I'm just going to go ahead and I just, open every image in a different tab. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. I do have a sheet on the left of your screen. I have been keeping track. This is how I kept track of things last year. So I have, this year I got every opponent, each opponent. Say we play St. Louis 4 times. Say we go 4-0. I hope we go 4-0. That'll go under here. Say we go 2-2 against Minnesota. Say we go 2-1, or actually 1-2-1 against Nashville. I gotta fix that, but it'll be it'd be 7-2-1. So that's kind of how I'm kind of trying to roll with this. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get moved on with the schedule here, the actual schedule, the actual thing you came here to watch for. So the first game of the season, Wednesday, October 13th, against the Colorado Avalanche on the road. Man, that is a tough ask for this franchise to go into Colorado as the season opener to say, hey, go into Colorado and beat the Avalanche. I still believe the Avs are going to be cup contenders again this year. It's going to be a long year, but I mean, hey, if we play each other 4 times this year. It's going to be weird playing division opponents 4 times instead of 8. So we only have 2 games in Colorado this year. Nice to see one of them get out of the way early. Friday, October 15th, at New Jersey. Chicago early opens their interconference matchups with a game against the Devils. I'm going to switch these 2 colors, the colors for the Hawks, because I put like a thing like this, like say the Avs won, I'd put like 2-6. Let's just say we get destroy that. How it would be. It would suck to have a team like it. You wouldn't tell which team won if you were reading it correctly, but just for more distinction. Anyways, moving on. So that could be very well the first win of the season for us. We can include an early 3-game early homestand or road trip against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Our only game in Pittsburgh gets taken out of the way in the first 3 games of the season. I mean, I'm not going to complain. It's a bit of a rough start for the Hawks as they start in Colorado, New Jersey, and Pittsburgh. Realistically, possibly a 1-2 start to start this season. Although on October 19th, the Hawks get their home opener against the New York Islanders, the semifinalists. So how about that? Oh yeah, I have a pretty short. Let's see here. So October 21st, our next home game. The Vancouver Canucks visit the United Center. Should be an interesting game. I don't know. Whoa. This next one is a big one. October 24th. Circle this one on the calendar, boys. This one is going to be big. Detroit coming to Chicago. It's a shame that we had that 4 times last season. We're only going to see it once this season. I'm really disappointed in the fact that they still are in different conferences. But then again, that's just how geography is in the U.S. It splits just a little bit farther from the Mississippi because east of the Mississippi is where at this point how sports portrays it, like 75% of the country lives east of the Mississippi, which is true. The East has a lot more big name cities, where west of the Mississippi you got the whole states that are just no name states that have no big cities to warrant a sports team. The biggest spots being Kansas City and Denver, and then the Texas teams. But I mean, in terms of the Northwest, you got nothing. So, anyways, we go ahead and move on to October 27th. After the Hawks finish a game against the Red Wings, which they should win, they host the Toronto Maple Leafs for their only trip to the United Center of the year. I'm noticing that this team's getting a lot of interconference games early against teams from the Eastern Conference. It's just very frequent. Not sure what the deal is with that, but okay. More meaningful games in the Western Conference afterwards. So, yeah, I'll take it. Only 2 so far, by the way, which is Vancouver and Colorado. But that ends a 4-game homestand before the Hawks go to Carolina for their only visit to Carolina for the year, which, shockingly enough, is the other. Excuse me, I did not get that right. Is the other game where Carolina has pretty much the exact same color scheme as Chicago. So they get the 2 red and black teams out of the way early in the first month of the season. But here we go. We have 1 division game, 2 division games in the first month, the first game of the year. And on October 30th, the Hawks play the St. Louis Blues for the first time in the season. It's honestly going to feel weird playing teams like Colorado and St. Louis again, and not playing teams like Carolina, Columbus, Tampa, Florida all the time. It's going to be weird, but I'm honestly really excited to see the Hawks play the Blues again, because the Blues are starting to regress a little bit. Yeah, they won the Cup. At this point, I'm like, you know what? Whatever. You can have your miracle story. You kind of deserve it after 50 years of turmoil and failure. But I mean, at the end of the day, I still hate the team, and I don't wish you win it again. So I hope you guys fall to the basement like you did for half that season in 2019. So that's October. Pretty entertaining stuff. Moving on to November. Not the following day. 2 days later, the Hawks return back home to play the Ottawa Senators. Our 1 game against Ottawa at home. Okay. That could be a big game to win. November 3rd, our only game against Carolina at home. So the Hurricanes play their only game in the United Center right then and there. That's it for them. How about that? I mean, we're done with Carolina in November. That's going to be really weird. Moving on, November 5th, Chicago finally gets back up to Canada for their first Canadian opponent on the road of the year, which is the Winnipeg Jets. They do pay him a visit up north. I'm actually really excited to go see the Hawks up in some of these road games, because especially in like Colorado, it's going to be nice and kind of warming to see those teams, or the Hawks back in those cities. I'm actually really excited for those. November 7th. Not 7. November 7th. Home game. 1 game road trip. That's kind of interesting. Just a quick trip up to Winnipeg, back down to Chicago to take on the hated Nashville Predators, who they killed us last year. And that's the major thanks to the schedule for them to beat us up and down the ice, because we started to trail off and they started to get really hot when they started to play us again. And we just could not beat them for the life of us. Thankfully, we didn't get swept, but they weren't the only team that we just absolutely sucked. Nashville went 7-0-1 against us. Tampa went 7-0-1 against us. Rough year against Nashville. I hope that we can actually win more than 1 game against them this year. I am looking forward to not losing to Nashville 7 times. We have our second of 2 games against Pittsburgh 2 days later on November 9th. All right, so we've gotten two teams off the slate in terms of Eastern Conference teams. Pittsburgh and Carolina are already taken care of. Wow. Hang on, that is 6 games per. Okay, so that's game number 14, and we're done with already 2 teams. So I'm all fine with that. And November 12th was a home game against the new division opponent in the Arizona Coyotes, which is still just super weird to think about. The Arizona Coyotes in the Central Division, Arizona-Nashville division game. I'll say it again. It's weird because Vegas was placed there to try and get Arizona a true geographic rival, but unfortunately, that is going to not pan out to be the case because Vegas has already done so well for themselves to build up good rivalries with the Sharks, with the Kings. Yeah, I mean, they're already starting a great rivalry with the Avalanche, with how good they've been these past couple of years. I'm excited to see what the Vegas Golden Knights can do in terms of rivalries, but that's unfortunate for some team like Arizona who now just aren't known for having rivalries, now kicked to another division. Because at this point, it was like keep Vegas and Arizona together or keep Edmonton and Calgary together. They're going to take Edmonton and Calgary every single day. So November 17th, speaking of the division realignment, the Hawks will pay a visit to Seattle to play the Seattle Kraken for the first time in franchise history. Comes relatively early in the season. And let's just hope that the Hawks don't take like 5 years to beat the Vegas Golden Knights for the first time. Because holy cow, did they wait like 2 seasons. They went like 2 full seasons without beating Vegas. So let's just hope that Chicago can win against Seattle in their first year. Hopefully even in their first game against Seattle they can win. So, yeah, November 20th. It is a very emotional game on the schedule and a very important game that's going to be circled on the league's calendar. The primetime schedule has not come out yet. We don't know the full length to what games are going to be on ESPN, TNT, TB, Turner, or True TV, whatever it is that they're going to have, ABC. Regardless, we don't know those kind of schedules, but I can tell you for a fact that game against Detroit and this game against Edmonton will most likely be circled on those calendars, and even our first game at home against Edmonton because Duncan Keith has just been traded to the Edmonton Oilers. And it's the end of an era. It's really weird to say that because we've lost a lot of players that were with us, the core. Seabrook retired, Shaw retired, and now Keith has been traded to Edmonton to probably finish out his career. A Hawk legend, all 3 of those guys, Hawks legends. Duncan Keith, one of the best defensemen this franchise has ever seen, one of the best defensemen the NHL has seen. So I am going to look forward to that game and see how it's going to be weird to see him in the orange and blue. Moving on, our first trip to Vancouver. So a bit of a trip into the Pacific Northwest with Seattle, Edmonton, and Vancouver. And speaking of which, they will end that road trip up in Calgary. So it looks like Seattle might be in that Pacific Northwest road trip, especially because, the other U.S. teams on the Pacific in that division, Vegas in the middle of the desert, basically, and then the 3 California teams. So it makes sense that Seattle is up in the Pacific Northwest in that road trip. Makes sense. 4-game road trip in the Pacific Northwest ends, and the Hawks come back to the UC to take on the hated St. Louis Blues. That's going to be a good game. First home game against St. Louis in Lord knows how long, pretty much, I wouldn't say 2 years, but, about a year and a half, almost 2 years. So I'm looking forward to that one. And then on the 28th of November, the Hawks are at home for the San Jose Sharks, one of the 3 California teams. It's been a while since we played them as well. It's honestly really weird seeing a lot of these teams on the schedule for reasons I've already explained. So that concludes November. Looks like a pretty interesting month it's hard to gauge, like right now, it's hard to gauge some of the games that the Hawks will be playing, such as games against Arizona, Edmonton, Vancouver, Calgary, because they haven't played in so long. So it's hard to gauge how they're going to perform. Games like Carolina, I can pretty much see that they don't. The chances of them winning would be unlikely. That's the way to put it. Yeah, I let's move on to October. Or excuse me, not October, December. December 2nd, road game against the Washington Capitals. That one should be good. Trip to Washington. And it looks like we're going to take a trip to play a bunch of interconference games, as I can see here, because December 4th is on the road in MSG against the New York Rangers. That one should be good. It'd be nice to see some original six matchups. That one could be a nice circle for the good old prime time, taking on Panarin again, which I still am so pissed that they let him go to Columbus to get Saad back. Like, I love Brandon Saad, but dang. In the long run, that was not the right decision personally, because he became a bona fide superstar with Columbus and is now great in the Rangers uniform. I'm losing my words. The next day, they go to the Long Island to play the New York Islanders in their new stadium. I forget what it's called. But the new stadium that the Islanders are getting, they have 13 road games before their first game at home to allow construction to be finished. So it's going to be really cool to see the Hawks go into that arena and what it looks like, because I can assure you, I hope that atmosphere in there is awesome. December 7th, the Hawks return home to play the Rangers again. So 3 straight games against the New York teams. They finish off the 4 games against them as they play the Islanders up here on the 19th of October as their first home game. They're back on the road, though. They go to visit the 2 original 6 Eastern Canada teams. On the road, 2 games in 3 days. They play the Montreal Canadiens and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Both games against Toronto now officially in the books. Montreal has their first game against Chicago there. Both should be awesome. Like, this stretch here, in this early stretch in December, should be fantastic. I would not be shocked if Chicago has quite a handful of primetime games, whether that be Hockey Night in Canada, on ESPN, TNT, you name it. I would assume that there would be plenty of those. But anyways, the Hawks come back home to play the Calgary Flames. That's another good game, and they move on. They'll host the Washington Capitals. So Washington plays Chicago twice in like 13 days there. And then on December 17th, to conclude a 3-game homestand, the Nashville Predators come to town, and that is a must-win game. Obviously, it's Nashville. I cannot tell you how important those games against Nashville are going to be. Those are also games to circle just because it's Nashville. Also, I would not doubt that those games would also, at least 1 or 2 of them, would get onto the primetime television. December 18th, Chicago has their first game against the Dallas Stars, the only other division opponent that they played last season, which is really weird to think about. So they'll make their first trip to Dallas there. And speaking of the Central Division from 2021, Chicago hosts the Florida Panthers. So I am looking forward to see how they perform against Florida, and that's a good team right there. I would not be shocked if Florida gets back to the playoffs, and depending on who they play, because they drew the Lightning, I really thought that they could have won that series if Kucherov and Stamkos did not return to the lineup, obviously, but I think if they draw the right opponent, Florida would definitely be able to get to the first round. They just have to not draw someone like Tampa. But the Atlantic Division is pretty stacked. Next game, December 23rd, it's Dallas, who pays a visit to Chicago for the first time this year. And then Christmas break. Enjoy the holidays. Hopefully the Hawks win right before the holidays. Everyone go have Christmas, spend time with your family, do all that fun stuff before a couple 2 more games to conclude 2021. One on December 28th and one the following day on December 29th. A back-to-back home and away back-to-back. That's weird. Hawks host Columbus. So a bit of a string. Starting December 17th, pretty much throughout the rest of the year, the Hawks exclusively play teams from the 2021 Central Division, being Nashville, Florida, Dallas, and Columbus. They conclude the 2021 calendar year on the road in Winnipeg. Yeah, that's really it. They made it to the second round. I don't really know what else I have to say. So, yeah. Cool. Moving on to January. And holy cow, is it stacked. January 1st. Wait, hang on. It looks like, I know the Winter Classic is in Minnesota between the Blues and the Wild. That actually seems to be a pretty good game. So that'll show me that Chicago not only will play Nashville on January 1st, but that January 1st is not only going to be the Winter Classic as it has been for a long time. So, yeah, the Hawks have a January 1st game, a New Year's Day game that's not the Winter Classic. Chicago, then final game against Calgary. They play them twice at home this year. So that'll be interesting. Flames did not make the playoffs. They didn't do really well. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about Calgary. They lost Mark Giordano, and that really sucks. Their captain for the last 7-8 years or so. Member of the team for the last decade and a half. Gone to Seattle. Probably will be their captain. I would not be shocked if Mark Giordano is named captain for Seattle's inaugural season. Oh, well, this team's back on the calendar. Colorado makes their first visit to the United Center after the season opener, not the home opener for the Hawks, but the season opener there. And following that game on January 6th, the Hawks will visit the Arizona Coyotes. Their first road division game against the Coyotes. Should be interesting. And then on January 8th, the road is hit again. They tackle the two desert teams, if you will. They'll play Vegas for the first time in the year. The Hawks just have not found a way to beat Vegas ever, and it's kind of infuriating. So let's hope that they can beat Vegas, right? They beat them once in that playoff series. I'll take the one win in the playoffs in 2020. We managed to get there. I don't care. We got the one win. So, yeah, we weren't going to win that series. January 11th. I got to capitalize the J. The only other game Chicago plays Columbus this season, which is also really weird. Only one game in Columbus, and that's where it is. January 13th. Chicago's only home game against Montreal. How about that? Montreal takes on Chicago January 13th at home. Should be a good one. And they continue to that two-game homestand. Anaheim comes back. Oh, man, those days when I first started following the Hawks, the Ducks and the Hawks were that was it right there. The top teams in the Western Conference. Oh, Chicago versus either Anaheim or Los Angeles. Those games were it, baby. Especially that Western Conference Final in 2015. I will never forget how fantastic that series was. Chicago then pays its second visit to Seattle. So it looks like they'll have 2 games on the road in Climate Pledge Arena. I'm not complaining. I like the choice, honestly. I would love to see the Hawks play. I want to see more Climate Pledge Arena, especially with my team in it. We'll also playing 2 games in Edmonton against the Oilers. Okay, I'm not disappointed, or I'm not going to be complaining. Hawks will play Duncan Keith again, and on the 21st of January. How have this team not shown up on the calendar until January? The Minnesota Wild, everybody. And with that, the Chicago Blackhawks have played everyone in their division at that point. January 22nd is a back-to-back home-and-home between the Hawks and the Wild. I'm not complaining. Should be good to play Minnesota again. Again, it's Minnesota. I don't like Minnesota teams. But the Wild have not really given me any heartbreak, so I don't really have that much beef with the Wild, especially because we've just knocked them up and down the ice every time we play them in the playoffs so far. But Minnesota is going to be a better team this year, I would believe. If they draw the right opponents, they just drew Vegas. It was rough for them. I would assume that they definitely could win a playoff series. But here we go, January 24th. In Colorado again, our second game on the road. I would not be disappointed about that. I am totally all good with that. That'll be just fine. Because right after, this is it. The only other time we played the Detroit Red Wings all year, January 26th. And because it's a Wednesday game, I do not believe, or I do not doubt that it would be prime time hockey, depending on whether or not ESPN and that group decides to inherit the Wednesday night hockey series. Don't know if they will. They may call it something else, but maybe Wednesday night rivalry, whatever it is. I would assume that they may continue to do things on Wednesdays, or they just throw Wednesday night hockey out the window and start doing things on Saturdays and Sundays. But especially as the season progresses out of football season. Because we all know ESPN does not like to cover hockey. They're very much oriented on basketball and football. So that's why this deal is like so shocking in the first place. So, yeah. Anyways, moving on. January 28th. Our final game against the Colorado Avalanche. 3 games in January. Honestly, I'd rather get them out of the way pretty early in the year. About halfway through the year now. I'm totally fine getting them out of the way, frankly. January 30th. Our third game against the St. Louis Blues. It would have been about 2 months at this point since we played them. Ooh, who knows how much what these two teams would have changed. January 31st, a home game against the Vancouver Canucks. That's the third and final game against Vancouver this season. And that concludes a long month of January. Holy cow. We move on to February. Oh! Only 3 games. All home games, by the way. So I'll just go ahead and put those in. So they play Minnesota at home. And that's the only game. Oh, yeah. I remember hearing that makes a lot more sense now. I just totally blanked on me why there are so few games. First of all, the All-Star break is about the 4th or the 5th that weekend. And then the Olympics, the Winter Olympics. Can you believe that? We have the Summer Olympics pretty much starting right now at the time of recording. And not even a year later, in just about 6 months, we're already getting ready for the Winter Olympics. Thanks, COVID, for delaying this. But, I mean, hey, we haven't had, like, any sort of big name event in 3 years. We had the Winter Olympics in 2018, World Cup in 2018, nothing since. So we got the Olympics, the Winter Olympics, and the World Cup in the span of about a year. I am ready. I'm excited to see what this holds for sure. So they come back February 25th after Lord knows how long as an absence for the Olympics. They'll take on the New Jersey Devils, which was like one of their first games of the year, and they're going to go ahead and play the Devils again. Their only home game against the Devils, so it's the Devils. They could win that game. And then they conclude the month with a 3-game February against the St. Louis Blues, baby. Oh, I'm really happy the rivalry's back. And I'm glad that even though we don't share a conference with Detroit, we still have a really rich rivalry with the St. Louis Blues, although It's a little bit more one-sided, but who cares? March, not to no one's surprise, it's a lot more games. We start off with our only home game against the Edmonton Oilers. Duncan Keith returns home to the United Center, and that is going to be weird. Duncan Keith in another uniform in the UC. March 5th, on the road, first game against the Philadelphia Flyers this year. Should be a good game against the Flyers. Pretty even team in terms of what we produced. March 6th, the following day, we come home to take on the Tampa Bay Lightning. First game of the year against Tampa. If I'm not mistaken, we played them in the early stages of March this past season. Yes, that was our bit. I think that was our 3-game home stretch against Tampa. Yeah, so that should be interesting. Probably not going to win that game because they're back-to-back reigning champs, but, should be interesting. Hawks host the Anaheim Ducks for the second time this season with that. Oh, and I got to move these up. So, perfect. March 8th, Anaheim, Chicago. That's a big one. And then March 10th, the Hawks are on the road for their lone trip at the Garden. TD Garden welcomes the Chicago Blackhawks, the place where they won the Cup in 2013. 17 seconds happened in that arena. They go back to it. I'm excited for that game. Boston, so they're always going to be at least half decent, so who knows how they're going to perform this year. I don't doubt it would be bad. So following that, the Ottawa Senators host the Chicago Blackhawks on the 12th of March. It's Ottawa. That's a winnable game. That's all I have to say. March 15th, one game at home against the Boston Bruins. Their lone game in the United Center for the year before the Hawks go back out on the road for a 1-game trip against the Minnesota Wild. They played them. Oh, my gosh. Dude. 4 games in the span of about 2 months. 2 months. The Hawks get all 4 of their games in against Minnesota. The following day, they come back home to play the Winnipeg Jets, and wow, they've got both there. So they got another game against Winnipeg, but they go home, road, home, back on the road for their only game in the Honda Center at Anaheim, which, that should be a good game. This looks like it's their, this isn't quite a California road trip. They go to LA the following day. It looks like that's our first game against the Kings, I think. That's not what I wanted to do. But Kings, right there. They take on both of those teams in the Staples Center and the Honda Center, but they go to Vegas right after in a T-Mobile Arena. So, okay. Whatever. I'm kind of used to the whole California road trip thing, but the one chance of the California road trip is now not going to happen. So, all right. And then they come home for 1 game to play Patrick Kane's hometown team in the Buffalo Sabres, the walking dumpster fire. Yeah, I'm going to say it. No playoffs for 10 years, longest playoff drought in the league. I mean, what else do I have to say? The Buffalo Sabres just suck. They were the worst team in the league. They had a 20-plus game losing streak. There's nothing else to say about the Buffalo Sabres. They're bad. March 31st to close out the month. They play the Florida Panthers, their only game in that arena. Gotta move up a little bit here. A handful of more cells here. But that's the end of the month of March. 1 more month to go. I'm just going to put in April 1st. Oh, baby! I nailed it. because their only visit to Amalie Arena is right there. So I am ready for that one. Ready to get killed. April 3rd, Chicago hosts the Arizona Coyotes for the second and final time this season, where they take a 4-day rest, and they play their only home game against the Seattle Kraken in their opening season. So that should be fun. April 10th, home game. The Dallas Stars come to town. I'm excited for that. I'm looking forward to that one. That should be good. It's Dallas. I mean, it's not too much of a beef, but, you know, it's Dallas. I don't really have anything against Dallas. April 12th, San Jose pays a visit, their second visit to the United Center. They still have one more game after this, as you can see on the schedule, but right after they play the LA Kings for the second time this year, as they cram, well, that's not NAR, it's MAR for March. That is going to be Los Angeles to Chicago. Right there, April 16th, a 4-game road trip starting in Nashville. Gladly, they do get 3 of those games that they have against Nashville out pretty much at the new year. They have one more game against Nashville. Who knows how much this is going to matter in the long run. That game could be really big. A bit unfortunate that it comes late in the year. April 20th. Or at least unfortunate they have the disadvantage of playing them on the road. They play Arizona for the final time on the road, April 20th. The following day, they pay a second visit to the Staples Center to play the LA Kings. And then 2 days after that, on the 23rd, their lone visit to San Jose in the Bay Area to play the San Jose Sharks. April 25th, their second and final game against the Philadelphia Flyers. Alrighty, April 27th, third and final game against Vegas. That's a big game for them right here at the end of the year. And to close it out, the Walking Dumpster Fire welcomes the Chicago Blackhawks to end their pity, or to end their suffering for the year. Because I highly doubt they're going to go from worst team in the league and winning the draft lottery to playoffs. So I'm just going to say that the Hawks are going to put them out of their misery and win that season finale, hopefully pushing them into the playoffs. But who knows what will happen. But that is it right there, folks. Your entire 2021-2022 Blackhawks schedule. Take a good look at it, because this is it. This is it, folks. October to late April. Usually the season ends early April, but because it's an Olympics year and they have that giant break here. So, yeah. Break for Olympics. Shrink that down to a 7. There you go. Break for the Olympics is right there. Pretty much the entirety of February is taken up. And, yeah. So it ends in late April instead of early April. I am excited for this season. There's a little bit of optimism, but a little bit of worry, especially losing Duncan Keith. But we do get Jonathan Toews back. We did get a status update on him. He's gotten through it. He's ready to be back. Seattle took John Quenneville in the expansion draft. I was expecting and hoping that they took someone like Calvin DeHaan, because if you watched the reactions, you noticed how mad I was several times at Calvin DeHaan for poor defensive play. So, yeah, I am excited for this season. Excited to play an 82-game season against every team in the league at home and away. Get to see every stadium again. Oh, this is going to feel like we're back to normal. So, yeah, I'm excited. Really excited to see which of these games end up being the primetime matchups. Yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for me. Make sure that if you like the video, you like this video. You hit the like button if you like the video. Hit subscribe if you want to see more from me and see the reactions for this upcoming season. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video, which by the time this is uploaded, most likely would be... I'd probably be focusing much more on the Bears content. It's going to be interesting to get to balance both of those teams at once, especially early in this season as we get through the first couple of months of the year. So I'm excited. Go Hawks. See you guys.